Hi, Leanne. How you doing?
Hello. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Good and welcome to Spiritual Talk. It's Wednesday again. How are we?
How quick has that come round?
So quick. So quick. I know, it's crazy. Guys, let us know you are live. We're live, sorry. Hi, Carol. She's come on already. Good to see you guys.
Oh, I haven't got the comments on.
Yeah, I don't know. Facebook has been having a bit of a nightmare recently.
Oh,
Someone tried to hack us last week, didn't they? Never mind. We'll get there. Mustn't grumble. Hi, Sean. Hi, Teresa.
Hello.
Rhonda. Hi, guys. Lovely to see you all. So tonight we got a great guest, haven't we?
Yes.
Another
Means we
great
can
guest.
sit back and put our feet up.
Yeah, it is on a pre-record, guys, but it is quite an interesting interview. This particular gentleman is hard to get hold of. So it's wonderful that he's agreed to do this interview. I've been trying to get hold of him for about a year. So we've managed to nail him down, keep him in one spot for well over an hour. So I'm really looking forward to it.
So we were honoured then.
We were honoured. Yeah. The gentleman in question is Marcus Day. Some of you may know him from the medium wave. Some of you may have seen him demonstrating locally as well to Norfolk, Suffolk and home counties. I know he has worked nationally and internationally. So some of you may know him from working abroad. And what we'll do is, guys, don't forget to like and share, because after the pre-record is finished, we'll come back in and we will choose a winner and of a free reading if you share. And if you keep sharing throughout the program, we might catch our eye on you and we'll pick you for a free reading. So I'll be ready. Okay. I'll be ready. So it'll probably start straight away. This is the techie bit and I might get it wrong. So bear with me, guys. Any problems, just give me a shout in the comments. So here goes.
Hi, how are you, Paul?
I'm good, thank you. And hello, Marcus. We're going to go straight into this.
How are you guys?
Really good, really good. It's Saturday afternoon. We're doing a pre-record because you're a very busy man and trying to get hold of you. And we are so pleased that you've given your time to the audience of Spiritual Talk. We kind of like to get to know you, there, Marcus. One of the things we do on Spiritual Talk, we really want to know about you, what your journey was, how it started for you, and kind of how, going through your development, how things affected you. There's a lot of guys that watch the show that are developing themselves and on their own journey. So we kind of like to know any tips or anything you might be able to give us. Anything, any pitfalls?
Right, how long have you got?
Oh, mate, we've got as long as you like. The floor is yours.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. And I'm a bit jealous of your backgrounds there. I mean, I know Paul's. I actually thought his was like one of those green screens. I was like, oh, where'd you get that from? And he picked up the cushion and said, what, you mean this?
Yeah, mate. No, it's you won't be the last.
I look like I'm broadcasting from some kind of prison cell. But
well,
I kind of am, because my hooligan children are downstairs and they're 4 and 2, so they're like besieged me in the smallest, furthest room. And they're like having blenders with a lid off. So that's the best thing you can do for development is not have children. No, I'm joking. But also equally, your background is pretty supreme as well. I mean, is that a real one or is that a real fake one?
Yeah, Dylan took years making that bookcase shelves behind you.
Well, I need you guys.
I believe it's not about the behind; it's about what's in here. So I'll allow my light to shine out. What you see from behind is an illusion, like life.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. All right, that's good. Well, background's out of the way then. Real background. Mate, it's been a journey and it still is. I mean, first of all, thank you for being here. And it's a great honour to be asked as an inspiration to anyone who's developing themselves spiritually or mediumistically to be asked my opinion.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, I grew up in good old Suffolk, where I am now. I've been away and come back. And in the early days, we lived in, we moved from Ipswich to a farmhouse in Great Fimborough, Suffolk, which is a little village. And my stepfather had this quite old farmhouse that he was doing up. Anyone who went around there probably thought we had a few quid because it was big, but it wasn't. He just got it cheap and done it up. But the fact was, it was a very historical building. And so people talked about, well, you know, we've seen ghosts and stuff. So I grew up just thinking, oh, I just heard people say that kind of thing. And it didn't seem, you know, abnormal. But the fact is, I think everyone who visited that place had some kind of experience. But it wasn't that got it for me. It's just that kind of normalized it. But I was having my own experiences from a young child where I would say to my mum, I've just been talking to the man with the hat and the long dress again. My mum said, oh, that's lovely, thinking I'm going to move into a hotel. You know, when I got older, she confessed it was quite terrifying, you know. And I just thought it was just, first of all, my stepbrother dressed up. And then later on, just thought there's a man with a hat that would appear in the hallway and chat to me. I don't remember those conversations, but, you know, I vaguely remember telling her as I got a bit older that it was happening. Yeah. And then, I mean, like, I think as I grew up, it's all that gave me the feeling that there definitely is something beyond this world, you know?
Yeah.
That this can't be just it, because I had too many experiences growing up. So it felt natural to me. Plus, I heard other people say, oh, yeah, we've seen a ghost and this kind of stuff. So I just thought, yeah, it happens to everyone. Didn't really, you know, didn't question it, so to speak.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was ever going to be a medium, though. I mean, even as I moved through my early 20s and then got really profound experiences of the other world. So I got onto a plane coming back from Tenerife when I was like 25. I was with my then girlfriend. And I'd seen my brother-in-law, who I hadn't seen probably 2 or 3 years, come onto the plane, look at me and sit down. I was like, wait, well, hang on a minute. There's my brother-in-law, Don. And she's like, where? I was like, there he is, look, with a denim shirt. He just sat down. You know, everyone's putting their bags in the overhead lockers and finding their seats. And I thought, that's mad. He knows I'm here because he just looked straight at me.
Yeah.
Anyway, then I couldn't see him. I thought, where the hell's he gone? Right. So really confused at this point. Anyway, she's opened the newspaper because I got the free complimentary Sun or whatever it was. And she said, oh, look, British actor Don Henderson died yesterday. And I was like, wait, hang on a minute. That's not, I've just seen him. So I saw him as clear as I'm looking at you, or clearer, because I was in the same space.
Yeah.
You know, looked at him solid. He looked at me, sat down, vanished, like not vanished as in Star Trek vanished, but then I couldn't see where he was. But in that way, she got to have the experience as well, kind of, because otherwise, if I'd said, oh, I just saw him on the plane, she'd think I was losing the plot. But the fact that I said I'd seen him, and then we found out he was dead.
Yeah.
So I know in his way, it was his way of saying, hey, I'm here and I'm okay. Just before you find out, because, you know, my family were going to tell me when I got home because it's just, I think maybe my phone had been off or something. But anyway, so the experiences like that, and I found it very comforting. Because people often say, when you see a spirit person, is it scary? I'm like, no, it's not because it happens so naturally. You know, it's only afterwards you think, oh, that was a bit strange. I mean, I'm talking about early on when it's all very new. And so I just had these experiences and thought, you know, everyone else gets them.
Absolutely.
And then I got a few years on from that, I thought, I wonder if I can do this instead of just letting it happen, you know? And in fact, in between that, I'd wanted to learn to meditate because, you know, I had a very busy lifestyle. I had a busy job. I was, you know, looking after a business for someone. I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. I had a load of staff. It was just absolute chaos. It was good, but it was chaos. And I was in Cyprus, actually. I walked into a shop and they had a magazine with a dolphin on it. And it talked about self-healing and expanding your awareness. It wasn't the kind of thing I would normally read or look at. But as I picked it out, a leaflet fell out and it was a really easy way to meditate. So I thought, well, you know, I'll buy the magazine for the leaflet. So I started doing this little meditation, which was something really simple. It was just about breathing in and focusing on colours and stuff.
Yeah.
And I noticed I suddenly started to have a bit of space around the chaos in my mind. I started to have more energy. But the byproduct of this space that I'd created was that my soul or spirit or whatever you want to call it at that time said, hello, we're ready to give you all the other experiences that you could have. And I didn't know this is what I was doing to myself. So the byproduct of this sort of extra stillness and focus upon the peace within developed like a gap, an opening towards my psychic experiences. And they just blew up out of nowhere. And I'd be seeing all kinds of things appear on my wall. And I would know that I would see an X-ray, you know, we're sitting having a cup of tea and there'd be like an X-ray of someone on the wall and it would show where their back had a problem. And what had caused the problem. I texted the person who had been in England, I hadn't spoken to them for a couple of years, said, "Oh, you've got a bad back, and you've been wearing those shoes with the strange cork heels on." And they're like, "How do you know this?" I'm like, I couldn't say, "Well, I've got an X-ray of you on my wall," but apparently you got a sore throat. Yeah, how do you know this? Same person. And you've been eating boiled eggs and toast all week just because that's all you can eat. And she's like, "What is going on?" I said, "Well, I had a dream. I just had to tell everyone I had a dream every time something happened." "Oh, yeah, I had a dream."
I was going to say, Marcus, because how did that impact on the relationships and people around you, having these experiences, messaging people? When did you get found out, firstly?
Do you know what? It was, I actually thought, do you know what? I'm getting to the point where this is getting ridiculous. I'm going to see if I can not just have these experiences, but make them manifest, set the intention. Where do I go in my mind where I can say, right now, it's starting to happen instead of just happening spontaneously? So a friend of mine was saying, "I want to go and get a reading with a psychic." And I said, "Well, I think I'm a little bit psychic." She's like, "Shut up." I said, no, seriously, come with me. I didn't really know her that well, but I knew how to speak to her a bit. So we met up, and we both just sat there laughing, so I didn't know what to do. But I did remember, I don't know where I got the idea. In fact, I still don't know where I got the idea, but it seemed in my mind to have this idea that if you held something that belonged to that person. So she handed me a ring, and she said, "Well, does that do anything?" I said, "No." So we sat there for a bit, and then all of a sudden this imagery just started to appear on my mind, and I spoke about a man called Andy and a speedboat, and I could see a man with an old check shirt, and I got an awareness of his name. And then I saw lockups, people pulling down the thing and put stuff inside and pulling it down, locking it up, coming back the next day, and then wheeling it out to markets and stuff. Well, she said, "Well, my dad's called Andy and he's got a speedboat." And she rung him, and he said, "Yeah, my dad's name was that was his real name. We used to call him Alf or whatever it was, but his real name was David or whatever it was. And he used to have fruit stalls on the east end of London, and he used to lock it all up for all the other market holders every day, like all stall holders, at the market."
Yeah.
So that was his job, and and it just blew my mind. It blew my mind that not only I could see this stuff of another world, but someone could understand it. And I was just in some crazy days for the first week thinking, I've just glimpsed another world by setting the intention to do so. What I've said has been understood. And this stuff is well, I knew it was real, but it's more real than I could ever think it now. Something else is happening with it. Wait, what? Hang on. I still never thought, I'm going to be a medium. Because if you look at...
Sorry, mate, go on.
I was going to say, when you read the books, people are like, they say the most extraordinary stuff, and it seems to happen so beautifully for them. Where for me, it was, bits and bobs over the years, and then it became something that I then learned to develop and still am doing so, 20 years later. But it took a lot more for the spirit world to convince me or entice me into the idea that I was then going to be a medium. But yeah, sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say at that point, because when you had that glimpse of the spirit world, it is an amazing thing, but there is all, as human beings, we have this self-doubt. Did you struggle with any of that, with the whole self-doubt? Am I imagining that? Is this a process? Did somebody else put this in my mind? Did you have any of those kind of doubts?
Strangely, not during that experience I just described. And there were more experiences that kept bolstering my belief in what I was doing after that. But I think that the doubt came when I started trying to give people readings. I mean, there's a lot more I could tell you about my development and how I sort of got pushed into going down the route of developing. But I mean, I gave you like the sort of skim across the top there just to get the bit that kind of made some sense. But when I started to really doubt stuff, and when the doubts crept in, was when I started working, when I started giving, because the things that I was experiencing, I had no doubt. And that is one of the problems. I mean, I was talking to a lady a couple of nights ago. I gave her a reading on Zoom, I think it was, yeah. And one of the things the spirit world said to her is, don't let other people diminish your experiences. So when she says someone in her family, "Oh my God, I saw our cousin the other day and I saw him in so clearly in our bedroom, or I
Yeah.
felt when he whispered this to me, and the rest of the family go, she's losing it, and I said, there's going to be times, where there will be people around you who won't be that kind about your experiences, and you'll start doubting it or feel silly for talking about it. And I said, you can't let other people diminish your experience because it's your experience. So the experience I had no doubt. But when I started sitting in front of people and I was saying, right, okay, I'm like focusing until my eyes were bleeding, trying to get something for them. And right, okay, yeah, I've got a man here. And if they said no, that would be it. I'd just crumble and my energy would go completely into the wrong place, which was conducive of getting a contact or giving them anything that meant anything. And after a while, I mean, it takes years of practice and belief and also evidence for yourself, I think, to then just be able to say, well, I know this is what I'm experiencing. Maybe there's some words that I haven't quite used yet, or something I haven't experienced yet. And maybe I'll get that in a minute, and you'll be able to then know what that is. I say to people often when I'm giving them a reading, they're going to say, look, the truth is it's like a movie. I haven't watched the whole movie yet, but in just one frame, I became aware of something. You don't understand it, what I've just said. You don't understand the lady with the cream hat. That's all right. Let's just carry on watching the movie. And then the spirit world will put it back into the movie. And I say, right, the lady with the cream hat, she used to live 2 doors down and had a really annoying dog. And they'll say, yes, you're right. She did have a beard. I remember her now. And it's just the first thing I said wasn't enough, So I've realized now that if you really are
in somebody else's world, though, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's interesting you say that. I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago about the interpretation. It's like, I might say to somebody, right, I'm very aware that you've got family that connect to Canada. And they might then think that the spirit person has stood there and said that to me through words. Now, they may have done, or it may have been like had an emotional feeling of family close to that person and saw a maple leaf. Yeah. So my interpretation might be that, and it's also, you can describe someone in the spirit world and say, look, I've got a man here with, some kind of description of him, and they'll go, oh my God, that's my dad, totally. Yeah. And then occasionally they'll show you a picture and they think, it kind of looks like how I saw him. But the fact is, it's not that you weren't seeing him. You were seeing what your mind was able to share, interpret and share with that person enough to let them know. And other times you'll see the picture, go, yeah, that's exactly how he looked. But what I'm saying is, all our minds are subjective. So, we could all, it's like the, I don't want to get too deep or go off course here, but it's like the elephant and the 7 blind men, isn't it? Whatever it is. Have you heard that one?
Oh, no, we haven't. Come on.
the king has heard of some strange creature that's been brought to his rather large stable, I should imagine. And he said, I don't have time for this. Send the wise blind men to find out what it is. And being that they're blind, they just really go and investigate things with their hands. And yeah, I suppose they have to. So they turned up and one felt it, the other one felt it, and they all reported back. And he said, sire, it is like a great tree trunk. And the other one said, don't be so ridiculous. It was like the sail of a boat. And the other one said, no, it was like a twine from a tree. The other one said, well, I felt a very large snake. And so they were all right, but they were looking at different bits of the elephant, right? So, and this is it. Everything is subjective, isn't it? Everything that we experience. So there has to be some kind of translation in our mind from the spirit world when they give us a bit of evidence, whether it's a color, a smell, a taste, a sound, words, an emotion, that you're then providing to the person in front of you, that they're going to then understand through the words you've chosen to translate that. So there's a lot happening at once, and we just have to get out of the way and not think about all that and just say what we're getting, don't we? But I'm kind of probably saying things that aren't going to help anybody. I'm just talking about.
No, I'm sure people can relate to this. I certainly can, sitting here, and I've been lucky enough to meet you on your journey when you first started. I think it was you'd done your first demonstration. I think it was at This Spiritualist Church, and I must have been like 2003, 4, something like that. It was early days.
I believe what had happened was I'd stood up in it was when Pat Smith had her open circle.
Yeah, if Pat's listening, hello, Pat.
Hello, Pat. I love Pat. And I used to go to Pat's open circle. And we'd go in there and practice whatever we were practicing, and it was always something different. And she'd have guests come over and help us, and she then invited, because she ran the centre at Roydon, didn't she, with people
absolutely
visiting mediums, and we had the chance as fledglings to stand up. I think it was a Christmas do, and I stood up and gave a message, and annoyingly the person in the audience was someone that had been involved in spiritualism for years and years and years, and I gave quite good information, and Pat was quite cross because the person sat there and said, "Oh, I don't know," and that I was like, "Oh God, I can't do this then." Sat down. That's it. I give up. I give up. Never going to do it again. And Pat said, "Oh, for heaven's sake!" She knows exactly who that was. She was just being difficult, And this is what I was trying to say before. People that are developing, we go through, or at least at that stage of I'm going to start working with this. And it's a bit like learning to drive, isn't it? You get your instruction and off you go, and then you really learn to drive when you're driving, not when you're getting your lessons. It's when you get out and you're getting cut up at a roundabout, or you're trying to park where it's impossible to park, or there's traffic flying past and you're trying to move lane. You learn to drive then, not during a driving lesson. You just learn the basics then. Once you get out and you start working, that's when your mediumship or your psychic work or whatever it is you're doing, your intuition will get stronger, because you're using it like a muscle in the gym. The more you use it, the more it works, and you're developing as a person, which I could come on to and speak about. But the worst thing is in the beginning, is you're going to get no's, because the person sat in front of you may not know what you're talking about. I love the stuff that we find out later, because it proves they haven't Googled them or read their minds, because if they don't know it, how the heck did we know it?
Yeah.
So we have to sort of instill in.
On a question on that, Marcus, do you think also spirit test us in terms of trusting, surrendering, and giving the evidence? I remember I did a demonstration at Norwich Spiritualist Church on one Thursday evening, and the gentleman that came into my ear said, "I'm going to work with you a different way. Trust with the evidence that I give you." And I wouldn't have worked that way normally. Do you find that yourself as a medium? They'll kind of push you in different ways?
All the time, because in the end, none of us are the complete full ticket. We might have gained a good level in our mediumship. I mean, for a long time, I noticed that my clairvoyance, my ability to see things, whether that be the aura of someone or whether it be a vision of something in someone's house or a spirit person, or describe something, or words or sounds or pictures, was my easiest faculty. And so through a sense of familiarity, safety, and laziness, I would constantly go into my mind to try and visualize what I need to say. And the fact is, there are some spirit people who they want to work through your emotions, and if they can't, they're not going to express what they want to say.
Yeah.
Or they might not be able to work through your clairvoyance. So it's your emotions and your clairsentience they need to work with. And so for a long time, I was always battling with them to try and, I'm going to go looking for this. And the spirit world just said, stop looking and allow it to be very natural, and let us express through you what we want to give you. And so surrendering to it and not conditioning it is one of the most important and beautiful things, I believe, in your development, but also in your work. Because in the end, it's a bit like, I can't remember who said it. It might have been Jesus, it might have been someone else, but you're basically the instrument, the flute, and the breath of God or the spirit is what creates the sound, and all you do is express that sound as they want to play it. And then when you get yourself out of the way and allow that to happen, you're going. It was Eileen Davis that first showed me that, wonderful medium, and she showed us to just follow the information. And I remember giving a demonstration very early on as a fledgling still, and I don't remember my readings very much, but occasionally when you're on platform, you seem to remember stuff because things stick in your mind, especially what happened then. And I said, "Oh, there's a lady here that she showed me that she's an aunt to you," to the person who sat there, and I've got an aunt in spirit. And I said, she shows me you standing, instead of me going, "Oh, what's your name? How did you die? Where did you live?" and all this kind of stuff. I just let the spirit person show me around in my mind. And she just said, "I see you standing there and you're wearing plaits. I feel you're about 11 and you're watching her make gingerbread men." She went, "Oh God, I have a memory of that." And then this is the first time I really let myself go with letting the spirit be completely in control of what they want to do, rather than me asking what's next. And I just said, right, she's taking me through her stairs up I see a green carpet on the stairs. She goes up on the left and into a bedroom, and she takes me into the top drawer of a chest of drawers. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want to look in the top drawer of a chest of drawers, but I'm going to go with this. Focus, you know. And then she puts her hand into the drawers, and I was thinking, this better be good. And when she pulls her hand out, there's a sock puppet, and it's got sequins on. And her face, she said, oh my God, my auntie used to make us sock puppets. And she said, when my auntie was busy, I'd creep upstairs, go into her bedroom drawer and see if there was any in there, and we'd pull them out and then we'd play with them. And I thought, this is brilliant. Let the spirit world do it all. I'll just tell you what I'm seeing. So that changed my life. That changed my approach. And it goes for our development as well, I've realized, you know, I used to sit there, you know, people talk about sitting in the power, the development of your mind by sitting in the space of the spirit and the breath and focusing on your own spirit, all those things. And I used to sort of have the same kind of routine and theatrics that I'd heard another medium give me years ago for a long time, which all seemed to work, and it was lovely and it helped. But you have to do it in a very natural way. And rather than say, I'm going to go up into a light and I'm going to feel the blah, blah, you know, what you're going to try and do is just let that experience unfold. I mean, you might have to sometimes I just sit there and just say to the spirit, well, be with me. And there's no mental sort of, that's the other thing as well. I never got the chance really to sit in a circle. No one would either let me in, or I would get there and it was rubbish. And when I say rubbish, it was full of slightly strange people, talking in funny voices and.
Okay.
So have you self-taught?
No, I think there's been a balance of both. What I mean by that is I went to Pat's, Pat Smith's open circle in Dis. It was Shelfhanger, wasn't it? Lovely. It was the old cowshed they'd converted into a room for spiritual.
Near the church. The bells used to toll, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I was freezing and then got warm towards the end when we were leaving. But it was but it was a real joy, and in those days it was just right for me. It was fortnightly on a Tuesday night or something like that for a couple of hours, and anyone could turn up and be part of it. And it for me for a couple of years it was great. But I spent a lot of time going to the Arthur Findlay College. Across 10 years. I mean, at that time I was single, or probably had more money than I've got now. And I was just like buying courses and going there all the time. And some of them, and the whole, just being in that whole environment, it's a bit like Hogwarts for mediums. It's right near the airport. There was people from all over the world, and you've got people, there's a great power of energy there available. Everyone's there for the same reason. It's very tiring. I mean, you're there from 9 in the morning till 9 at night doing classes. But it's amazing, and it's a beautiful surrounding. And I'd come away from there, and sometimes it wasn't something that we practiced, but it was just something one of the mediums we were listening to had said during that week that I'd take away and use. So I'm firmly a believer in listening to people. I think we learn a lot from that. And so I learned, and I listened. There was a lady who she's actually in the spirit world now, Muriel Tennant, and she said to me, because I'd never been able to get into a circle. There was a couple of mediums I'd asked who'd got their own circles, and she said, well, I better ask the others. And they'd come back and say, well, they had a conversation and they thought about it and they said no. Okay, thank you. Lovely. I still know a couple of those mediums, and they've asked me for favours since, so I might say no. I actually did say yes to one recently. I think I forgot they'd said no to me in the pub. I'm not that bad, I'm joking. But no, they wouldn't let me in. And then I went to a couple of other kind of development circles, and it was just, there was people saying they'd been possessed by this, you know, through the spirit of a budgie or something. And I just thought, this isn't for me. I just think I'm probably the wrong place. And I went to another one, and the woman who ran it was vile. She was just all about, she wouldn't let anyone do anything. And then she'd have all these groupies in the room, and she'd say, oh, there was a man that used to live next to you with grey hair. And one of her groupies, God, isn't she amazing? And I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing here? And I remember she said to me one day, you've had a bit of a cough, haven't you? And I was thinking, I haven't had a cough for ages. I can't remember the last time I had a cough. In the end, apparently she's a really good medium. But as a tutor, it was awful. And you just got to say to yourself, because in the early days, you think, well, is this what it's supposed to be? So you kind of stick it for a bit. But you know, in the end, it just no. So the point was,
Marcus, I love your straight talking, by the way.
well, it's just what happened.
It is. I agree, but some people are not as honest as you, and I think it does come down to when you go and try and find a circle, whether you sort of fit in. It really is important. You know, have you got something in common with the person? You know, the teacher, the tutor. Do you? You know, is that energy connection within the group there? It really is important.
Maybe it's not meant for everyone.
No, absolutely.
No, of course. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, the other thing is as well, circles, what we call them development circles. I don't believe people develop in them anyway. I think it was Gordon Higginson, one of the greatest mediums that ever lived, said it's where you develop the energies or practice, but your actual development is in your own life and your own time with the spirit. You know, I don't feel that you do. Obviously, you learn by practicing and you develop by practicing, but it's not really where you develop your mediumship or your psychic ability. The thing is, you're going into a place where you're kind of wanting to be led, guided, and feel safe.
Yeah.
And it's scary, exciting at the same time. So you want the person who's leading it to be very grounded, sensitive to your needs. And if you turn up somewhere, someone's got a bit of an ego and it's about them, or they've got a cliquey little group there, or there's other people who maybe want to be there and they've got strange personalities, it can mean that something a bit odd's happening. Maybe that's why they didn't let me in the other circles. But the point is, what happened for me was Muriel said to me, look, she said, we used to have a student come from Denmark and he hadn't been to the college. He came to the college and he said, what can I do? Because we don't have development places in Denmark, where I live, especially in the middle of nowhere, he said. And she said, sit in the power of the spirit. And that is the best thing you can do. Yeah. And he came to the college about 4 years later and he was a changed person. And I did exactly that. I remember going on a course and then a couple of years later saw some of the same students and they said to me, and this is not about me, it's just what I've been doing. I've been literally sitting in the power every single day. And I still do every single day. And I have done for the last 18 years, every single day, whether it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes or an hour, I sit with the spirit. I sit to still my mind and I ask the spirit world to be with me and teach me subconsciously, show me what you want me to do, help me learn and understand what I need to do to be able to work for you, what you want me to do for you. And now I don't need to say it. I just sit there and say, right, okay, I'm going to sit now. And it used to be in the mornings. It used to be 7 o'clock at night. Now I just sit every night before I go to bed. That's how exciting my life is. Sit on the end of my bed, sit in the power before I go to sleep. Gives me the best sleep ever. It's better than a sleeping pill. Lots of healing. You get lots of healing from the spirit as well. But I know the spirit world, if you let yourself go enough and allow them to, you know, take you on that, where they start to blend their mind with yours, then all you're doing is you're building that subconscious link between your conscious mind and the spirit world and how much they're able to give you, how much they're able to work with you. And it's amazing, it's beautiful, and it's free. And she said to me, do that. And people remarked on how much my mediumship had developed. And they said, what have you been doing? Where have you been going? I said, I'm at home, sat in the power. And then you get people who say, the first time I went to a development group of any kind, right? You're going to laugh at this. Well, you might not, but I found it funny. Is I hadn't got a clue what I was doing because I went. Obviously, I'm British. I live in England, but I lived abroad for a while. I lived in Spain, lived in Cyprus, I lived in Tenerife, and that's where all my stuff started happening. And I didn't know what I was doing out there. There was no mediums, you know. In the beginning, I hadn't got a clue. I thought a medium was between a small and large and a healer fixed a shoe. You know, all I knew was that when I came back to England, I thought, well, I have to look up this stuff and see if there's anyone out there, anybody out there that can help me. So I typed into Google and came up with Cedar Spiritualist Church in Ipswich. I thought, well, that's not far. I'm not far from there. Yeah. And they had a development group, a 10-week development group with some guy called Roger Coleman. And I thought, well, this looks all right. So I rung up and said, can I join? And I spoke to Roger and he said, well, we've only got 3 weeks left of this 10-week course, but why don't you pop along anyway and we'll see how you get on. And then you can always join another one. So I went along for the last 3 weeks. What I didn't realize was it was a trance course. Yeah. So my introduction to spiritual development, apart from what I'd sort of done on my own, was sit in a dark room with people talking in funny voices. I thought that's what you did. So that was my baptism of fire. Not literally, because it was pretty interesting. And then he said, well, do you want to actually come on like a sort of sort of foundation course. And I said, "Was that not it?" And he's like, "No, that's a trance course you've just been on." Oh, right. Okay. So I didn't know what I was doing, but
That was
what
a baptism of fire, thinking this was a proper development circle.
yeah, just sat
Did
in a
it-
dark room with a bunch of people talking, and and the
Different
funny
voices.
thing is, I mean, trance takes such a long time to develop. If anyone's watching this knows about trance or seen some amazing trance, and there is such a beautiful phenomenon if you get the right person who's built that rapport with the spirit world, and you get this beautiful philosophy. And of course, there are a couple of mediums now today, which is very rare, but they will actually have loved ones speak through them to the people in the room and give evidence. It's absolutely incredible. Simone Guy, she does that, and I think she's one of the few mediums around that does that.
Yeah.
And if you you go to trance, I mean, I love trance. I'm laughing about it being flippant because of my experience. But when you first go into a trance group, it's not year 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Sometimes it takes 10 years to develop that rapport with the spirit. Because to start with, someone sat there into that state of awareness where they can allow the other person, the spirit world, to blend with your mind enough where they can influence your words. And everyone's saying, "Welcome, friend." And the medium just says, "Hello." And that's about it. That's all you get to start with. Do you know what I mean? And then someone says, "What's your name?" And they're like, "Huwawa," or something like that. And that's all you get, and then suddenly it gets better and better and better. It takes a long time. Eventually the rapport builds.
It does.
And this all makes me laugh about the whole idea of possession. That all evil spirits can possess you. I don't believe in evil spirits, but I also don't believe there's anything, because if it takes you decades to develop a deep sense of rapport with the spirit world where they can influence your words and you still remain in control, how the heck can someone who hasn't got any spiritual development suddenly get possessed by a spirit that has no rapport or it's just rubbish. It doesn't make sense to me. So if I said to the spirit, "Well, come on, possess me, do it, possess me, please," it wouldn't happen. So I sit at home to try and, develop trance on my own. And people say, "Oh, isn't that dangerous?" Like, why? The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to fall asleep. It's just a mind-to-mind blend.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm sorry if I'm getting on my high horse. It's just there's so many things about the journey that I find silly, funny, beautiful, amazing.
Let's talk about pitfalls then. What to watch out for people? If I'm sitting here listening to this interview today, Marcus, and I know there's a few budding mediums out there that like to watch the show, what would you say avoid, or what would you say? Well, you've encouraged like sitting in the power. That's a no-brainer, and quite a few guys that we've had on there really encourage that, sitting in the power, blending with spirit. But is there any kind of pitfalls that you would say?
Number one, don't be too tough on yourself, because in the end, it's nobody. All this stuff takes different amounts of time to develop.
Yeah,
and it might be that. I mean, for me, I ignored my clairsentience for so long, and just tried to stick with what I could do, and that became a pitfall because it meant that because my plan A, if that wasn't working when I was doing a demonstration or giving readings, then I had to have a plan B, and I didn't have one. So now I allow let all your senses develop, and because we think, I don't want to be clairsentient, it sounds boring. I want full manifestations coming out of my ear on the stage. So demanding of the spirit world is the wrong thing. But saying to them, "Look, I want you to be. If I'm going to work with you, I want you to do your best for me, so I don't look silly and I feel confident." I've had this bargain with the spirit world for a long time now, that if I say to you, your leg's not going to fall off after all, and look, and your mum's okay, and she's found the most beautiful place to live in the spirit world. And then she'll say to me, because that sounds like I could have just said that.
Yeah.
Just could have said those words. She's then got to tell me something I didn't know, I couldn't know. She'll then say to me, "You've got a green teddy bear, which you keep in your glove box in your car." And you'll be like, "Oh my God, how do you know that?" And that's my way of being comfortable with saying things that we can't prove.
Yeah.
The spirit world will give me some icing on the cake to prove it's coming from them.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. So get things that make you feel confident. Say to spirit world, I mean, you can't demand everything of them, but find something that helps you feel comfortable and confident with your work. But one of the biggest pitfalls and one of the biggest things that I know that we going from that leap from development through to starting to working regularly, is that when we first experience, images, thoughts, feelings of a psychic nature, mediumistic nature, we want it to be really clear before we say it, because otherwise we're fearful that it's going to be wrong, or that it won't be understood, or we're going to look silly. So we wait until it's so clear, and that takes up a lot of energy and time. Through development and refinement of your work, you'll become aware. It will just be, as Eileen Davis calls it, of just merely dust in your consciousness. So as you start to work and say, right, okay, just give your mind to the spirit, move your mind into the place where you're going to start to feel and sense and see who's there. There may be just the very vaguest feeling of there's a lady here. So you express it. You say, oh, I've got a lady here. And I might not have seen her yet, but I just felt her. And there was enough. And I know very much that as she passes, and I'm really sticking the spirit world's neck on the line here. And it was Simone Key that taught me this. Don't just sit there and wait for the next thing. I know that she wants to show me. And she's actually showing me that you've got a beautiful jacket of hers. Now, I'm not demanding this. I'm just saying I'm letting them fill in the gaps. And she's talking to me, and I just heard that there was blood clotting in her legs. So all I'm doing is, it's just the tiniest things. I'm not waiting for a really clear picture or a really loud word or a really sharp image. I'm just giving the time. And then what happens is you move so far into the experience, it becomes more real and more real as the spirit world works through your nervous system and your senses and everything else. And then you feel confident because it's working. Your energy and power ignites, and the spirit world's happy and the recipient's happy. And so there's just this firework and explosion of communication. Or you can sit and wait until it's so clear that your head feels like it's going to burst, or then you're suddenly conscious of the person sitting there waiting for you, going, "Are you going to actually get anything?" And then you suddenly think, "Oh, I can't do this." So it's about practicing that whole. It's a little bit like someone pushing you off a hill in a toboggan. Just go, and then just see what happens. Yeah, just go with it. Just go with it. It's like singing, "Let it go." Because then the spirit world will go with you. And that is, there's a lot of faith and practice in that. And that is, don't try and wait until you won't know everything in that first sentence or the second or the third. Just go with what you got and let it unfold and let it happen.
Yeah.
And also spend time around people that know what they're doing. Go and watch as many mediums as you can, and you'll get the sense then of who you like, what they do, what they don't like, and you might get some ideas. I mean, I don't get to see mediums much. Now and again, I watch them and I think, I love how they express that, or I love how they went into that person's life in that way. I never would have thought of in even thinking about that way of working. And not that you copy them, but it expands your idea, because otherwise you can get a little bit stale if you're not careful.
Yeah.
I mean, you see mediums who bring the same kind of information in every contact, and you think to yourself, expand it. There's more.
Everyone works differently, don't they? And I've always I'm not a medium. I'm a healer, but over the years, I've always gone to watch people, and I've had friends that do medium, and it's always fascinated me how differently everyone works and their own unique experience they bring through and capture everybody.
Yeah, that's so important, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure that when you get to the spirit world, I'm sure of this, that you'll think, I hope that I'll speak through that medium because they'll be really good at being able to hear me. And that one, well, he's a bit of a geezer, so he might be able to recognize me, or she's really good at, her clairsentience is really good, so I'll be able to work through her and express my emotion, so I'm sure that and also, if we sit in a room, we're all lovely people, but if we sit in a room with 20 people, there'll be certain people we just get on with. And if you've got the right energy connection with someone, the right rapport with someone, you're more likely to be a better medium for them, aren't you? I would have thought. I'm not saying that it has to be about you have to get on with someone, but they're just...
It's your flow, isn't it?
Yeah, your flow, your personality, and also your experiences in life will lend themselves more easily to the spirit world to tap into, to express themselves through you. So it's like, Paul, did you used to be a fireman or something? Have I got that wrong?
Part-time, yeah.
So if a gentleman had a job in the spirit world that related to that, you'd be able to very easily, I would have thought, express him. Yeah. Whereas, there might be something where the spirit will take us very out of our comfort zone in what we're expressing and saying, I'll do my best to try and describe this, but I'm seeing, a really tidy bedroom. I've never seen anything like this.
And you find also that as you go through life and the more experiences you have, you connect with those on the other side. So there was a time on mediumship where I wasn't connecting those that took their own life. Then I had a phase of just getting those that were taking their own life. And so I kind of felt okay with that because I had my own experience with that with someone that I lost in my life.
No, totally.
So that then I could then express that, the feeling, the emotion, and able to blend with that. So
and the empathy.
So
the empathy for the person in front of you. I think people shouldn't. The other thing I would say is a pitfall, and I don't. There's nothing wrong with reading cards. I like cards, and I used to use them to start with. If someone sat in front of me, I'd say, "Oh, have a shuffle of those." And because what I wanted is to focus, because I would look at a card, whether it's a playing card or a tarot card or an angel card or something, and I wouldn't look at the card and say, well, that means that you're going to move. But I would start to see pictures, feeling, images and thoughts. And then I've realised I wasn't using the cards. I would just like, and they'd say, well, are you going to tell us what's in the cards at the end of the reading? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And for me, the cards are a way of getting them to not look at me while I was trying to get my mind ready. But I realised that any tool that you can use will limit you because you'll stay with it as a comfort zone. So in the end, you don't need it. It's always your mind that's going to be doing it.
It's a crutch as well, isn't it? It's a crutch for the brain.
I don't get stuck with it. Try and go outside the comfort zone.
Yeah, agreed.
Live fearlessly. I just pulled a book out next to me here. Live fearlessly.
Yeah.
So, Marcus, can we move on a little bit? As a medium, though, how have you dealt with? Because you've had some big projects like the Medium Wave, and you was associated with the Medium Wave. You do a lot of lives on social media as well, and I know you've got thousands and thousands and thousands of followers. I think the last time I looked, it was over 300,000.
It's somewhere around that, between that and what I've got on another page and some Instagram, which I don't use a lot. So yes.
Yeah, and also I think you won an award as well recently, didn't you? What was that for?
Yeah, it's funny because the only couple of awards I've won within this industry, I didn't know I'd won them until someone said, "Oh, well done." I'm like, really? What is it? So that's happened to me twice. I got an education award from the SNU, and I didn't know I'd got that, and everyone was congratulating me. And I thought I just must have got the wrong person. But there was, I think it was Spirit and hang on a minute. Now this is really embarrassing because I can't remember the name of the magazine. It will come to me in a minute. And it's not the magazine's great. It's just that my mind's not
Spirit and Destiny, is it?
No, it's not. It's but thank you. It is drum roll.
We can come back to it.
Couldn't get much worse. It'll come back to me. But they're a lovely magazine and they do a lot online as well. I've just got a mind block. Got a mind block on it. And yeah, they had a poll for different categories of people who are most loved in certain areas. And the thing is, there's so many good mediums and healers and light workers, but a lot of them don't have an online presence. So I guess it's people who have got an online presence they were voting for. And when I say got an online presence, you just mentioned it there. I mean, just before we went into lockdown, I thought I might start doing some readings online, just do live ones. I could see why I wouldn't do it because it was a bit scary and you're opening yourself up to all kinds of abuse and God knows what. But I thought, so what? Let's go and do it. And I think it moved me from a couple of thousand followers up to about 5,000 pretty quick. Yeah. And then we went through, obviously lockdown, and then so I've been doing the live readings on the Facebook page for a couple of years, and it went up to about 250,000 followers eventually, and lots in America and stuff. And it's really hard online. I tell you what, if you want to be a good medium, a good psychic, they are such hard work. They are demanding, but they're also very rewarding and beautiful. Do as many readings as you can, because it really is what sharpens up your abilities. A lot of mediums love doing platform or stuff, but do reading. And also readings online are so difficult because they're not any different from being in the same room. But when you've got thousands of people live and you can't see them, you're trying to get them into a studio like this to share, and they're all on the feed and arguing over it, and the thing's freezing and someone's earphones fell out and someone else that can take it. It really is not very easy to do. So I love doing it, but it's a battleground. It's a lot easier to do it in a room full of people.
Yeah, because we started off doing the shows where we did the last half an hour of readings, and a lot of guys that would come in, a lot of guests that would come in, really didn't want to do it. So a lot of guys that were well respected in their field didn't want to take that risk, I guess, because it's out there. If you're having a bad reading, and I remember Monique and I, we used to work together, and sometimes, and because we're not quite as live as you, I know you're better at the interactive stuff, and we've kind of had to learn that through the live process. And that's quite scary. And then getting people into the studio, because we both use StreamYard, I think.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a plug there for StreamYard, but we both use StreamYard. But getting people into the studio, then going live is difficult, because then you're giving the evidence, and sometimes you've got 3 people taking the evidence, and then them up. So it can be an absolute. You really are. And then. Yeah, from my mind, it's like your mind's dropping in and out, because you're trying to work out who's coming in, and then you're trying to stay in the power of the spirit with you. So
it's like trying to do readings with stuff being thrown at you, and it's a challenge in itself. So people say to me sometimes, "Oh, I see your stuff online, and it's really good," and I'm sometimes thinking it's not the best of me, because I'm doing the best I can in that scenario, and that's not me being. You put me in a live room with people, my mediumship will be many times more
stronger.
Yeah, just more easily accessible, because I'm not worrying about, someone's calling me a fake down the right-hand side here. Someone else is saying, no, I can take that. And, there's just so much going on the live. Because if you get 1,000 people in there and everyone's fighting over the message, and you're battling with technology. What I was going to say, I've just popped into my mind, is that ultimately, whatever we do, and this is why I think people got not to put so much pressure on themselves, is we're there to facilitate the healing of people who are in the next life or in this life. A mediumship is just another form of healing, isn't it? Like Leanne's a healer. That's how I came into mediumship, really, not just through my experiences, but I became very interested in healing. And it was more that I was interested in, because I felt I might be able to do some healing. I didn't think I was going to be a medium. So it's what I would have thrown myself into the healing side of stuff, but through those experiences,
there's a question off of what you were saying there, buddy. How do you deal with that negative? He's this, he's that, he's a fake. Only today, Leanne and I were having a conversation about somebody you're getting spammed by, which turned out to be, I'm not going to name names, but it's a little bit of a.
Can we not?
Well, I don't want to say that. But
who's getting spammed by? I'm getting spammed by.
No, I am. It's just bombardment. No, you unsubscribe and you still get bombarded.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. When I first started going online, actually, no, I'm going to do this on my way around. Recently, I've invited many mediums over the last couple. I say many. I would say probably a dozen people to come and just join me on my live and do some readings with me. And there are many mediums who are very good mediums, very, very good mediums. They won't do it because they don't want to expose themselves to the difficulties.
Yeah.
They don't feel it's fair for their own work. They don't want to, like you said, have a bad day.
Yeah.
And that be out there online. And I get that. And so, but I think what's happened.
You're as good as the energy you're working with, though, aren't you? I always say that to my clients. I'm as good as what they allow. If they're open, then they'll get everything. If they're blocked, they won't.
Yeah.
They won't get it. So it's the same for you. If you're open, but you're as good as the person that you're reading.
Oh, the recipient plays so much of a part, and that's why learning to help someone relax. And I say, if I can see someone's very tense, I'll talk to them for a bit first, maybe longer than somebody who, at the start of a reading, if I'm doing a private reading, a one-to-one reading, I'll keep it very light. I'll explain to them, I'm not going to get anything too personal. I'm not going to get anything scary. Just say yes if you understand, no if you're not sure. I just might say, oh, it's a lovely picture you got behind your, just have a chat with them, just to bring them, because they're like sitting there thinking, well, I'm going to get anything, and is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? And that kind of stuff. And once you've got them relaxed, they're more likely to respond to you in a good way. And I think it's difficult. There's several things happening on the live. First of all, you've got to be quite brave to come on live, and there's a video that sometimes 50,000 people are going to watch in the next day. and people are sat home in their pajamas getting a reading from me. So there's a level of desperation sometimes because they wouldn't normally put themselves in that position.
Yeah.
So I get people that don't have access to mediums or haven't got the money to pay for a medium, or they just really want to hear something and they're on a waiting list somewhere. So that I'm aware that people are in vulnerable positions. So I'm a bit careful for people. And if they are going to come live with me, then I always say to them, look, there's a medium for everybody, and I'll do my best for you. And I'll do my best for the people in the spirit world, and we'll just see what happens. And there's been times when the connection or the recipient has been saying too much or not responding, and in the end, you've got people who are coming on the live because it's a public forum saying, oh, this bloke should be in jail and he's full of BS and all this kind of stuff. And sometimes you get loads of it. I actually used to find that annoying. And now I say, I'm really glad you're here, because not everybody's ready for this, and that's normal. Not everybody believes in this, because there are so many charlatans out there who are. Yeah. When I spoke to a lady last night, she'd lost her son a couple of years ago, and I brought him through, and she got what she felt was evidence. She wanted his name, I got his name. She wanted his age, I got his age within a couple of years. I gave the date of his passing, all this kind of stuff. And he said lots of things to his mum. And she said to me, if it wasn't for people like you, meaning mediums, she said, I'd be dead by now. And she said, I've had a reading with Tony Stockwell, I've had a reading with someone else, and reading with. She said, but before I found the real mediums, she said, I was just phoning up any old number and going online. She said, I got ripped off loads of money and I got told flannel. And here's a lady who's lost her son, and so I can't expect everyone who jumps on the live, who sees a bloke sat in his living room or wherever he might be with a dodgy haircut saying, look, I've got your nan here. And she said, everything's going to be all right. And they're going to jump on and think, not another one of these grease mongers. So I can't expect everyone to straight away think that what we're doing is okay. But there has been times I've said, listen, look, stick around, you might learn something. There's other times where people start throwing stuff at, putting YouTube clips of like Darren Brown or what's his name? Is it James Randi and people like that?
Yeah.
And I start saying, that's lovely. You've looked on YouTube, you're an armchair expert. Which mediums have you had a reading with? Or none? Well, there you go. So you haven't really had an experience. What you've done is you've listened to someone else's subjective belief on the matter, and therefore all of a sudden you're an authority. So if we were going to get in a deep debate, I can throw stuff at them all day and destroy them verbally, but I wouldn't do that because that's not fair on them, because I know too much about what I do. I'm not saying I know everything about what I do, but I do it enough to know more than the casual person who attacks me. And what I mean by that is they'll say, oh, in 150 years, there's never been any science to prove it. And I'll say, well, that's not true. You obviously haven't looked at the science in the last 150 years then, because now there's been a load of declassified files that psychic work has been carried out and investigated by massive government faculties, or whatever the word is, agencies, and they've been studied, and they've proven that psychic abilities are not only absolutely real, but it's a robustly proven science, empirically proven, and published in scientific magazines.
They've used it behind the scenes for years that we don't know about.
And they do. There is a program out there, Leanne. It's I met someone recently that was involved in the CIA program. I know another gentleman that was working for MI5 that's also a psychic. So
there's a guy called Russell Targ. He used to be a nuclear physicist. He's in America, and he got tasked by the CIA, and they gave him millions of dollars to set up a task force where they investigate to see if they can use psychic abilities to find a plane that's been stolen and taken to Russia, or whether find that kind of stuff. And they found that they could do this stuff, and they were able to. He said that when they investigated the Drugs Commission and medical societies or commission in America to see if aspirin would help people with heart difficulties, that only a couple of weeks into the control, where some of them were getting the aspirin and some of them weren't, it was so evident that the aspirin was having a positive effect on the function of the heart with people with heart problems, that they felt it unfair to restrict. So what they did was, it was so clear that this was beneficial with small side effects, that they stopped the experiment early. They wrapped it all up, did what they needed to do, and started prescribing them to the people that needed it. And he said that when you look at the abilities of psychics, real psychics, to see things in the future, to pick up things at a distance, to be able to see, feel and sense very clear and scientifically clear information. He said it's 10 times stronger than the evidence that aspirin helps heart patients. And this is a no-nonsense scientist. He said the CIA don't do things. They haven't got much sense of humor. They don't like spending money. He said if something's not working, they don't do it. And he said we had this project for over a decade, 12 years, I think it was. And the only reason they wrapped it up was because there was quite a lot of religious people in Congress who said we don't want to give this any more money because we feel it's the devil's work. But he said one of the most psychic people he ever had work with him, Russell Targ, was a ex-police chief, and he was able to solve murders and tell you where cars were and the number plates and who killed the person. Incredibly psychic. But...
Oops. Was that you, Leanne, or was that's not me?
That's the magic of going live.
Hey. Cool.
And he's back in the room. That's the magic of going live. Someone tried to call me. Okay. So there's a guy called, sorry, I digress, I'm making this long-winded, but there's a guy called, because I've got on my high horse now, there's a guy called Dr. Robert Lanza, who's been described as one of the 5 most important scientists alive today. He's called the modern-day Einstein. And he is the godfather or the forefather of stem cell reproduction or whatever. So if you need to grow a new kidney or something, he's your man. Not that I know all the science behind that, but Dr. Robert Lanza, he's quite a young gentleman, but he's a medical doctor in America. And he's basically written a book called Biocentrism. And he's taken it out there. He said, look, like all science, it takes even the biggest believers in something wanting to be true. It takes them a long time to accept something. And there's a lot of dogma within the scientific world as well, where people don't want to believe something, even the evidence is in front of them. And he was saying, only 300-400 years ago, people believed the world was flat. It takes a while for people to realize what's actually happening. And what he maintains is if we look at all the science over the last 10, 12, 15 years, it all points to the fact that consciousness is prior to our physical existence. And the physical existence does not mean the end of consciousness, but consciousness has to continue. And they're using all the science to do with atoms, molecules, everything to do. Basically, he's saying that it's a bit like, if the tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, is there a sound? And he's arguing that the science will show you that molecules and the atoms that make up the world around us behave differently when there's no consciousness present. They don't act in the same way. They've proven that actual physical matter will be acting differently when it's actually perceived conscious. Oh, for goodness sake.
That was for goodness sake, not an F word. So that's really good. We don't have to bleep that out.
We were watching a documentary last night, and it was on about energy and sounds and stuff. And they went into this deep underground cave, and the further they went in, and the guys were like, can you hear anything? And they just stood there for a moment and they went, nothing. And how bliss silence was. And he was saying, but it's not silent. It is to your ears, but it's not. So then they set up a machine in there, come away, and the machine was like hitting the top scales of all the noises.
Wow.
But to your human ear, it was quiet. It was amazing. And then they went in and they were saying about the vibration. It was a blind man had gone halfway down an active volcano, and they'd put speakers on the ledges, and he was explaining what he was feeling. Even when the other guys couldn't feel the vibration, he was saying the vibration was like all around him here, and it was coming in and out like that. But it's because obviously his one of his senses were gone, so everything else is heightened, isn't it? And when the guy put the speaker down, the speaker that was then picking up what this guy could feel around him, but the others couldn't feel. And it was amazing. There's so much that you don't give credit for, because we're using
the sounds that we know that we can't hear, frequencies, colors that we know that we can't see. There's so much. There's radio waves happening all around us now, and but what he's done is he's taken that science and looked at everything that they've done to do with physics, quantum physics, biology, and everything, and put all the experiments down and said, well, actually, all the science actually says that we are consciousness prior to the fact that we are physical experience, and there's no other way it can be. If you look at the science, and that's what mediums have been, and certain spiritual people have been saying for donkeys, you know. So when these skeptics are throwing this stuff at you, oh, you're just making it up, there's no such thing, I'm saying, well, look, you can either sit around and get some proof yourself. Why don't you come live with me? None of them have ever done so. Come live with me, you know, we'll have a chat. None of them have ever come live with me. And I remember I was, what I'm saying is, if you want to go into debate with someone who's very skeptical, wants to have a sensible conversation, not only, you know, does the evidence you give or the results of what you do show that something's going on if they're ready for it, but there is some science out there to back it up as well. But if they don't want to know that, they just want to be abusive, then they're not going to believe anything, are they? But what I will say is, when I said this to one troll, he said, you're just appealing to authority. And I said, well, whose authority are you appealing? You know, what do you mean appealing to authority? I'm telling you the science. That's not me appealing to authority. I'm giving you facts. What do you know, it's like nothing was good enough. So that's what you get. And why would everyone want to believe it anyway? It's that there's people are very entrenched in their own beliefs.
It's a journey, though, isn't it? I just think we're all on totally different journeys, and we'd have all been on that journey at some stage. You know, each time you come back, you evolve. So you've got to have been there to appreciate where you are now, and they just don't appreciate where we are at the moment because they've not caught up on their lifetimes to understand.
The one-eyed man is the one-eyed man is the king in the valley of the blind. But then he gets thrown out because they're all skeptical and cynical and think there's something different about him and we're not sure what it is. So it's just a silly story I heard ages ago, but it kind of the same thing. What I was going to say to you is, and I've completely forgotten now, so it couldn't have been that good. Oh yeah. So I think I was doing an evening of mediumship at the Pioneer Centre in Newmarket. I'd been invited there. Yeah. And there was some guy on there, he was completely trolling the post because it was on like the buy and sell, and people said, oh, I want to go to that. And some guy was on there, probably not in that voice, some guy was on there sort of saying, oh, you lot are all fake and this kind of thing. And Leslie, one of the ladies who ran the place, came on and said, dear Paul, because I think that's what his name was, you know, this is the standard rhetoric levied at mediums and spiritualists for a long time. And you know, last time I checked, we live in a secular society where we're free to, you know, believe what we want and celebrate what we want and worship what we want. And, you know, why is this important to you? And the guy sort of just disappeared after that. And I've had it as well where people have attacked me because I was putting on a charity event of mediumship and I was getting completely bombarded by all these people on the post. And I left it for a couple of days and I came back and said, guys, listen, would you run into your local church or mosque and start shouting at them and saying that they shouldn't be doing this? No. I said, so why would you bring your bigoted and closed-mind opinions on here, sat in your underpants at home with your armchair expertise? Why don't you come along? I said, because I don't, you know, it seems a bit strange. And the guy went, oh, that's not what I meant. I said, what? So, you know, in the end, if you stick your head above the parapet and come out of the comfort of the circle or the spiritualist church or the healing centre and do this in a public forum, you are going to get people attack you. But in the end, you've got to say to yourself, do I stay safe with this? Or do I just say to myself, well, I'm happy. It's up to them what they believe. And I now I used to react to them, as you can probably tell. But now what I do is I just invite them. I just invite it as an opportunity, if I feel like it, to talk about why people might be skeptical about this and the reasons that they might find evidence, where there might be some books I mentioned or some things they can watch or some things they can look at or things they can think about, or why don't we look at it like this? So I use it as an excuse now to bring it up and talk about it in a polite and positive way rather than highlighting it in a negative way. Unless I've had some people who come on there do some really weird stuff. And then we've had some weird banter. But in the end, I'm not going to stop trying to help people, help the spirit world, just because there's a few saboteurs. You know, you're always going to get it on you, especially when you're online live, like that. You know, live.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a cheap shot, isn't it? So I want to move on now to what you're doing now. And you've recently just brought something out. I've noticed you've launched this new idea called the layered method. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned the whole, that sort of came about off the back of the medium wave. So the medium wave is is originally a place where I could kind of host it, and then we'd have other mediums, and then we'd maybe go out to theatres or, demonstrating spiritual churches or whatever. It was just a way to take mediumship out to a wider audience. It ended up being kind of just pretty much me for a while, and kind of still is. But it was a guy called Alan Howard. Well, it still is. And he originally produced all the TV shows for Colin Fry. He discovered Colin when Colin was giving readings in his shed in his garden. And Tony Stockwell was Street Psychic. He produced Street Psychic, and what else? I don't think he discovered Tony, but he certainly was the person that
he certainly helped him get him out there, didn't he?
Well, he did. They put Street Psychic's TV show together. They went to America together and everything. Yeah. And he also did stuff, Psychic Ghost Show and Psychic Detectives. He's done loads of stuff in this genre. And he and I ended up having a conversation. And he said, "Look, I'd like to do something with someone else, but I'd like to do it online because the world's different now and people watch stuff online." Yeah. So we did some stuff with me wearing a nice suit and what have you in Epic Studios, TV studios, and that was okay. But it's hard being in an audience with, never mind being online, but when you suddenly got, 12 cameras on you and a live audience who are also a bit nervous and they're like this, and the producer's saying you better go and get something because if you don't. And I suspect that's why you might get a few strange mediums on telly because they think, well, I've got to get something. But so we recorded that and became quite popular online. And then off the back of that, I realised that, especially through lockdown, there was loads and loads of people messaging saying, I've got anxiety. I'm feeling worn out. I can never sleep properly. I notice a lot of people don't feel very good about who they are. And a lot of people want to develop their healing side, their spiritual side, and their self-healing side or their psychic side. And I realized that I've been on a hell of a journey myself. I've had anxiety. I've not felt great about who I am. I've had haven't felt good about how I look, loads of stuff over the years, because as children, we get either bullied at school or we get told stuff, and subconsciously all these things happen to us. So I realized that we build up kind of these layers of protection, which at the time were helping us numb the problems we didn't want to face or couldn't face in our minds. Yeah. But now how we see the world. And they hold us back quite often, So the idea of the layer method is just a process. I think if people want to get in touch with their own spirit, their own soul, their own peace, their own dynamic intuition, the side of themselves, I see it like this. We've got our spiritual self, we've got our mental and emotional life, we've got our physical and material life, we've got our relationship with other people, we've got a relationship with ourselves. So they're like legs of a chair, and if one of them's a bit longer than the other, then that chair wobbles, right? So you want to try and get them all balanced. And most people haven't got, not say most people, a lot of people don't have a mechanism to connect with their own inner peace and their own soul. And so because of all the difficulties and the journeys I've been on, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way, I went to see the wrong people, I tried the wrong things, So I came up with a way that people can do something at home that's quite simple and easy to use, because a lot of the time when people, their minds are not feeling great, they're trying to think themselves feeling better. In fact, what we need to try and do is find that sense of spaciousness within, and then start rethinking from there, almost create a blank canvas of peace that we can, because if we haven't experienced inner peace, it's very hard to recall it mentally, isn't it? Yeah. If you've learned to develop that in the background of your life, then everything becomes easier. I mean, mine was because I was suffering from anxiety, low mood, not feeling great. I've always been very interested in the development of the mind, but also because I wanted to get in touch with my own spirit. So mine's been that kind of journey. And now I'm sharing it with others. So it's not a course about mediumship. It's a course about finding your own inner spiritual power.
Because people will look at you, Marcus, and they'll say, well, really, Marcus suffering from anxiety? And that's the thing. God, yeah. That persona of the medium that your personal life is completely different. When you're stepping up and working for spirit, it's almost like you're working for someone. It's not about you. But it's nice that you've based this on your own experiences. So you bring that to the fore as well in terms of, because the other thing, you also use a certain type of meditation, and I'm going to try and pronounce this, Homsu. Homsu.
Well, that's a soup you can get from the Chinese.
I knew I was going to get set myself
up. Hong sweet up. No, I'll tell you what it was. Is I've tried lots of things, right?
Yeah.
I've looked into Buddhism. I've looked into breath work through yoga. I've looked into Hinduism, spiritualism, lots of different processes to try and experience things of the mind and spiritually experience things. But one of the most beautiful and profound yet simple, powerful tools that I discovered was from the books of the great yoga masters. There was a guy called Paramahansa Yogananda, and he wrote a book called Autobiography of a Yogi. The weird thing is
it's me now.
Your turn now.
It's my turn now. Sorry about that, guys.
I've actually got my laptop propped up on one of his books, but he was obsessed with God and wanted to find Christ consciousness and develop self-realization. And one of the things that the yoga masters are very good at is not just saying, I've read some scriptures and I follow some rules, so therefore I'm spiritual, but they are more interested in developing themselves and giving themselves evidence that they are developing. So they have what's called the siddhis, or the siddhas, however you pronounce it. And what's really interesting is as they progress spiritually and find more of a relationship with God, the power within, whatever you want to call it, then the side effects that they show are clairvoyance, clairsentience, bilocation, levitation, manifestation, healing, being bilingual, but all this kind of stuff. So they've got all these yogis who sit there meditating and trying to find their inner power, and their own spirit is manifesting all these things. So rather than just saying, oh, I'm lovely and spiritual, they know that their path is they're on the right path, because they notice these things happening to them. They call them the siddhis or the siddhas. They know that they're growing. And one of the most beautiful things that they introduced to the West many years ago was a focus technique that if you do it for 4 hours a day for the next 20 years or whatever, you'll reach enlightenment. But even just doing it for a few minutes is amazing. And the idea is that whenever you breathe in, before you breathe out again, there's a gap, there's a pause. So as you breathe in, there's a pause. Then you breathe out, there's a pause. When you breathe in, there's a pause. And you won't notice it unless you look for it. So the Hong Sau technique is where you become aware of just watching the breath go in, there's a gap. And then breathe out, there's a gap. But you then start to raise your awareness to the gap between your eyes. And as you breathe in, you notice the gap. And as you breathe out, you notice the gap. And then the mantra that helps you stay on track and that focus is Hong as you breathe in, and Sau as you breathe out, S-A-U. H-O-N-G in, Hong, Sau. And the vibration of that word, I can't remember what it means, but I can already feel myself changing. And what happens is by noticing the gaps, you suddenly fall into the most beautiful, ineffable, fantastic space where you just become this beautiful golden light of bliss. And by what then happens is the breath feels like it's just something happening in the distance, and you become that space that's happening. And we're there with us all the time, but we don't notice it because we're too busy arguing with trolls on Facebook, or thinking I've got to pay the bill, or screaming at the kids, or trying to get the camera right on it. We're just busy, aren't we? So but if we learn little techniques like that, what I love about spiritual self-development is that you can't, whatever you've gained, you can't lose. Because you talked about pitfalls earlier. If I go to the gym, I might get a bit stronger and a bit fitter, but if I don't go for a month, I get fat and out of shape again, like now. So the point is, though, a meditation you might have done 20 years ago is still having a profound effect on your consciousness and your inner peace and your being and your energy levels. So you can't lose what you've done. So when people think, oh, I haven't been to a spiritual development class, I haven't meditated, well, you're still developing every day in your life spiritually through the challenges that you face, through the people you speak to, through the moments where you just sit and daydream. All this is developing you spiritually. So if we do little things like add a meditation or practice something that brings a great deal of spaciousness into our mind, a great deal of joy into our energetic body, then we start to find that we carry that with us through our day. And the more, I'm not preaching, I'm sharing, the more, because you know this stuff, the more that we have that within us, then we feel less buffeted about by the stresses and worries of, I tell you, Eileen Davis pointed out that she daily practices self-love. And it's something the Buddhists do. I can't remember what the name of the...
loving kindness.
Yeah, but to yourself.
I practice self-love every day.
There's for those that are listening at home, there's also another Hawaiian meditation that does a very similar thing, a loving kindness, the Ho'oponopono. Don't try and pronounce that at home. So that's also a really good one. Ho'oponopono. I'm not going to spell it because lots of P's, lots of O's. But the Ho'oponopono, but it's all about the mantra of self-love and kindness. And I've had the pleasure of sitting in class for a week with Eileen, and I was sitting at the back in the library. It sounds like a game, but in the library where Gordon Higginson used to sit and sit in circle, and the love coming from her, you could feel it. She's a wonderful lady.
Unreal.
She's a wonderful lady, and we are trying to get her on as a guest, and I'm hoping to get her on soon. So,
she's a wonderful speaker. She knows.
She is.
She's been in spiritualism from a very young age, and she's the most wonderful medium and very well read. And I'm in awe of her.
Beautiful soul.
Incredible. We're very lucky to have people like that. I tried this, sending myself this self-love before I went to bed one night. And I sat there and I sent it to my own body, my mind, my heart, my actions, my thoughts, my deeds. I just bathed myself in it and let myself go and give myself love that I hadn't given myself for probably ever. Well, the next day I noticed that there was a lot of space around things that I thought were important that no longer felt like they mattered. I couldn't believe the transformation, the energy I'd been wasting subconsciously or consciously on things that were so unimportant.
Yeah.
Everything becomes irrelevant, doesn't it? Everything becomes irrelevant.
It dissolves. It's transformative. It's our alchemy. Your energy is then left to do something more beautiful. And, this comes down to the whole thing of dis-ease, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The more well you are, the more like your mind is going to be quiet. But the more your mind is quiet, the more well you are, isn't it? Because So, the whole point of all this stuff is to feel better and have a better life.
So, where do you fit on the whole past life stuff, Marcus? Do you believe in healing past life experiences, or do you think you can do that from being in the present moment? What do you feel about that?
That sounded like a big question because do I believe?
Sorry, I was saying, didn't I?
Well, no, in spiritualism, I'm not just a spiritualist. I'm a spiritual person, but I know that the spirit world in that arena never talked to us about past life stuff. It just isn't something that. But I firmly believe in the whole concept and the idea and the possibility of reincarnation. It makes entire sense to me that we've lived previous lives. It makes entire sense to me that if we can come into this world in this way and have this wonderful but limited expression of the physical body, that there is something to be learned and taught, and that we progress the more we do it, However, I'm on, also there's too much science now. There's children saying, I used to live in this house, my name was that, and I got buried in the back garden. They go and dig them up and go, oh my God, we found his body and all this kind of. There's just too much. There's a lot of scientists now collecting this evidence and said, well, it has to be real because there's no other way it could be. And obviously the scientific community hasn't all caught up with it, but there are scientists who say, well, you can't deny the evidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, I believe the children are the future. No, I'm not going to do that. I believe that reincarnation and past lives is a thing. I firmly believe that. That makes sense to me now. Ask me in 10 years, I might say something different, but that's what I believe. But I think that we have to do our work in the now. Having said that, it's like anything that we face up to, that as an experience when we were 10 years old that stayed with us, to an experience that happened last week that stayed with us. Unless we face it and process it and digest it and then come out the other side of it, it can stay with us, can't it? So if there's a way of going into the mind to I mean, to be fair, if there's anything affecting you from a past life, it will play out in your personality and your daily routine now. So you can only heal in the present moment, can't you? Well, hang on, we're going to
Yes, I would say so. I would say so. We're going into quantum physics now, but yes.
But whether that affects...
But we have different timelines as well.
See, Russell Targ has proven
when I do healing, I always allow and ask that the soul be present on all timelines, on all aspects, so that the soul can have healing in this moment to cover all. So I'm clearing past stuff as into whatever takes forward and so on. But it's always really important, it has been for a long time, that the soul's present on every timeline.
So you mean like the consciousness of a previous life might be...
Yeah, because it's all playing out.
See, as I'm getting older, I also see that I believe that what we don't face, it's a bit like undigested food. I'm sorry, it's a really crass way to do it. Like if I ate a sausage yesterday and I hadn't digested it properly, it might come up, say hello, you know, it might be playing up a little bit. And during the day when we're really busy, we can ignore the things that we haven't digested emotionally and mentally, right? When we go to bed at night, then all the dreams will come to get us, and you know, we can get depression and stuff because we're not facing our problems. And so I think that quite often we have to face those things and digest them. But there's also something else. When we go into that beautiful space of bliss, what we've done is we've created a space where those things are more easily digested, understood, reflected upon, and dissolved into the light of understanding. Because if you're trying to understand what happened to you when you were 15 with a relationship with your dad, while you're trying to sort out another horrendous problem in your life, then you're battling two things. But if you go into a space that's comforting, welcoming and warm, which is your own soul, and I believe in some ways that's what Leanne's doing for people, creating that space for them.
Yeah.
It's also coming out of, I mean, the work that I'm doing on people is like, going forward, to me, it's really important that we stop living in here and start living in here. Because this is what's creating our fear. This is what's creating anxiety, stress, everything like that. The heart does not know that. The mind creates everything that we have around us. It's an energy. So while we're concentrating on all the low vibrational stuff, it's affecting all of our energy rippling out. Now, when we go into our heart space, it's the highest energy you can have. Whether people call it the power, blending, it's pure unconditional love. Highest vibration you can have. So when we come from here into here, we're straight away up into a high vibration and not in a low vibration. So we're helping ourselves clear all of the patterning that we've had in the past. And to me, that's where we're moving forward into now. So we're stepping away from the old limited beliefs and energies into just pure love. And that's what's going to change. And that ripples out and will affect not only on a cell level, on every level, because all the blockages, like you were saying, dis-ease within our body is everything we've manifested from here.
The body's under a lot of stress, isn't it?
Yeah, how many times do you go into your head in a day? Now, I might tell all my clients, when you feel yourself slipping in here, come back to that pure unconditional love that we've put there and allow that to ripple, instead of allowing your thoughts to ripple. And before you know, you're consumed in this dark hole that you've manifested in here. Where instead
you ground yourself in the space of love that's in your heart, and because the heart's got an intelligence as well. I didn't realize that, but I do now.
But to get into that space, the problem is we do live in a three-dimensional reality where we have to live this life.
You can still live it from here.
We can absolutely,
and look at it differently.
What I'm trying to say, it's like the Holy Grail, isn't it? It's trying to recognize what we're doing. It's trying to recognize how we're reacting in every walk of like everything we do in life, even our self-expression, even how we express like our mediumship, Marcus, it comes back to that level.
But it's taking that second to, instead of think it, feel it, and then express. And we would live in a totally different world. But too much and too many people will think it, explode. Where if they thought,
reactions to something,
feel, then answer, they're answering from love. They're not answering from anger. Like you were saying, when people come on and they'll troll and they could say nasty stuff, in that split second, you can go, bah, and it's all out there because straight away your brain's telling you that. But if you look at that, feel love, then you probably won't react, because I always have this thing, when I think and I feel, I allow myself to be put in that person. You don't know what that person's going through. You don't know what that person's had go on in their day. So by going into your heart space, you're being compassionate to know that they've got their issues they're dealing with. You don't have to add to it.
No,
so
absolutely.
You can just let it be and let them have their moment. And this is everything. It's not just trolling. It's everyone in general. Too much you see when you're around shops, you see people getting angry with people. And to me, you can easily lower your vibration and compete. Why? Go to your heart and try and lift them up. That's the only way this world's going to change, is if we all lift everybody up.
But that then comes back to programming again, and everything we experience within this reality, of this earthly reality.
You're in control of that, though.
Of course. But how many times, and be honest about it, like Marcus just did, I've dipped back into that. Road rage is one. Oh God, that knobber just cut me up. Just almost killed me. First thing that comes out your mouth is a negative. Because that's
how long you hold on to it.
Human reaction, isn't it?
It's human
reaction. How long do you hold on to it?
Well, that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like
it's the key to going, I've just said that, now heart center.
Yeah.
It's recognizing it and heart centering quickly so that you're back out of here.
Yeah.
But that's just my belief in my little love world.
No, I believe it. And this is what I was trying to express in a different way, is that if you've learned to cultivate that sense of peace, then all of a sudden you realize there's something beautifully rich and amazing within you that you don't have to find out there by watching some rubbish telly or getting drunk, or, all those things are fine if you want to do them. But what I'm saying is, and I'm not judging anyone, I'm just saying that there's something within all of us, which is where that space of non-reactive beauty and peace is, and where, to the point where, where you hear of monks where someone was about to murder them and they're like, oh my God, were they praying? They're like, yeah, praying for the person about to murder them.
They've got to live with it.
A non-reaction. And I mean, you say about road rage, I've probably said the worst road rage of anyone. I've never jumped out and had a fight or anything. But what I'm saying is now, I mean, someone cut me up a couple of days ago. In fact, it was yesterday. And there might have been a few years ago, I'd like put my hand on the horn and, waved out the car and all that stuff. But yesterday I was like, well, he's obviously in a hurry, and carried on driving, because I don't waste my energy on that. I don't say that I don't get annoyed, but I'm saying the work I've done on myself has changed my own experience of me and that's me.
And that's key. And even if you're sitting at home, I just listened to before we came live, I listened to your meditation, a little 10-minute one you did for people that follow you. And even by doing that technique, it just helps us to be less reactive and more mindful of who we are and what we're doing. And like you said, creating that space to take away some of those pre-programs and ideas that we have and reactions that we have. And if anybody can do anything to help them, just take a few minutes each day. Just take a few minutes. But yeah, I know it all comes around full circle, really, but it is about changing our ideas and pre-programming. I mean, Gandhi, what was that? What Gandhi used to say, our thoughts and our deeds become our actions. It's very much so. So it's kind of reprogramming and retraining our minds. It's so difficult.
Absolutely. But you give yourself a better chance if you experience that peace.
Yeah.
Then you become a beacon to everybody else, though, don't they? Because they want a piece of what you are or what you do. They're like, what's your secret?
No, I know. Yeah, exactly. And there are some people you can sit in a room with some people and feel mentally and emotionally burnt out. after you've been with them for 5 minutes, and other people you sit with them feel better.
Lifted.
They haven't even said much. It's just only because
their presence.
They radiate something of kindness, but like you said about Eileen, you know, and the parent. I mean, Simone Key, who's a wonderful spiritist, amazing medium. She said to me that she was told when she first went to the college that when Gordon Higginson was there, you could feel it in the building. There was a change in the atmosphere. She said, I have to say, I didn't believe it. She said, but how wrong was I? She said, because when he turned up, there was a whole change in the atmosphere because of the energy that man carried, because he spent so much time blending with the spirit world, you know, and he had this immense, beautiful, open heart and mind, which he obviously had this power that had an effect on where he was. I actually, you know, I know that you can be in the presence of someone who's spent a lot of time in meditation or has a lot of healing energy about them or has a lot of love, and it does have an effect on you. If you're sensitive, you can feel that. You said to me earlier about pitfalls. There's another one. When you're developing your sensitivity, I think it was Silver Birch that said it, the guide of Morris Barnabell. Yeah. That the byproduct of sensitivity is more sensitivity. So be prepared that you're trying to keep a strong mind, because if you're helping people heal, then hopefully you want to have a strong mind. But then to have the sensitivity to be able to have a rapport and understand their problems, as well as have a sensitivity to the spirit world, it's a difficult trick. Yeah. You know, I'm a geezer, I'm a fella, I don't want to be all emotional, but you know, having done this work for a long time, I've had to balance being me, and the more I've become more authentic with myself and had self-love and more self-acceptance and felt better of who I am, then sensitivity is much easier to deal with, because it's a trick to learn to be mentally strong as well as very sensitive, isn't it? And that's part of being human, part of being a spirit person on a human journey.
Yeah, I think you can't get the balance there. For a man, it's easier to be strong-minded, where for a female, it's easier to be more empathic. I mean, I don't think anything about crying with my clients because I can feel it myself. So to me,
it's almost... when they first walk in the door, they're like, "Oh, sorry, I'll go if you want." I'm joking.
No, it happened. It happened
really?
Today. I am really sensitive, so I'll pick up on that energy before they've even got to me.
But then on the other side,
came on earlier on, my solar plexus, and I went, I wonder if he's got any problems with his tummy or that kind of area. Before you came on earlier on, and then my head started going. But I always pick up on people's, and 2 years ago, I never knew whether it was present, past life, or anything. And still now, I just allow it.
It's funny you say. I was talking to someone who's terminally ill with cancer a couple of days ago, and we were just talking on the phone, and my solar plexus felt like it was on fire and spinning. I could tangibly feel it moving, and I thought, I know that the spirit world are using this opportunity to send some healing. Yeah. And that person said to me they slept better that night, and because I said, "Oh, did you sleep well last night?" And they said, "Actually, I slept really well last night." So, it's mad, isn't it? You know, I mean,
it's beautiful though, isn't it? I think it's so beautiful to be able to touch people in that kind of way without having to even be with them.
Yeah, and you're self-taught as well, Leanne, which makes you a pure channel. And I know a lot of mediums that we've interviewed and other people that have kind of gone to an institution or followed another medium's ideas of how they should work. You end up working, you're not your authentic self, and you kind of get away from how you work. And it's as a medium, it's important to understand, not just as a medium, as a healer, whatever your modality, but to understand your own uniqueness within that and get back to that. And I think it was Mavis Patella that talked about the same thing. She was going along to the college and she had a really unique way of working, but they kind of tried to mold her in a different way. And she realized that was happening. I was watching an interview she was doing, and that's really interesting, isn't it? And I think with you, Leanne, it's really interesting watching you work. You are a pure channel. So because you've had no programming from anybody, that's why
I'm a nightmare, aren't I? I cannot.
I didn't say that. I did.
No, it's fine. But it's really funny because on the show, Paul go, make sure you've looked people up, and I'm like, nah. I'm telling you, he goes, have you done any homework? I'm like, no, I'm a flow. I can't be boxed. I can't be controlled. I just I always say I'm like the sea. I wash in, I wash out, I expand.
Marcus.
Oh yeah, give me a book and I'm like, oh no, you want me to learn?
I've just noticed the time, guys. We've been in here 1 hour, 37 minutes on this interview. And I've just noticed your children are very quiet. So they've either eaten the contents of your fridge or they've tied
poured aftershave into your Xbox.
There's aftershave and there's toilet roll everywhere. So
I'm sure all of those things.
Had children, we know.
We want to say thank you for agreeing to come on and giving up your time Saturday afternoon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm amazed I even got asked.
Can we ask you one more question? Leanne, do you want to ask that?
My favourite one is, where do you see the world heading in the eyes of you?
Oh, wow. Oh, crikey. I've felt for a long time that, you know how let me put it like this. I know as Eckhart Tolle said that whether you are acting in a very unconscious way or whether you're acting in a very conscious way in your life, you are ultimately heading towards enlightenment, because the problems you're causing yourself are going to be lessons. If you're becoming more conscious mentally and emotionally and living more skillfully, and living a more intuitively guided and balanced life, then you're evolving. If you're having a problem, then you're evolving. So we're all going in the right direction. Well, what I feel at the moment is that we've changed so much in the last 100 years as a race, as humanity. Because look at all the technology, look at the pollution of the world, look at the way we share stuff. So there's all of a sudden, there's so much anxiety, there's poverty, there's so much happening that it can't help but have a quickening of consciousness, because people don't want to live like that anymore. They don't want to live like this anymore. And information's being shared. So I believe that the planet will survive, because it will catch a cold and raise itself up a couple of degrees and kill all known life and then start again. The planet will be all right. Get rid of humanity, can't it? I think that humans are in a process of having to evolve consciously, and once we evolve consciously, then we will have less road rage. And I mean that as an example on a euphemism, because if we don't all evolve consciously, and we continue to destroy ourselves and the planet, don't we?
Yeah.
What I do love and I do believe, and I remember it was Eileen Davis actually who brought this up, was that they found monkeys something like 3,000 miles away, 300 miles away on separate islands, had all started developing the same technique of breaking open certain vegetables or nuts or something at the same time. And that you'll quite often find that in the world that people have invented things around the same time as someone in another country, before the internet, before that there was a share of,
it's true. It is true.
The collective consciousness.
Yeah.
People we can't separate ourselves. And if we go into the physics of it and the biocentrism of it, and the fact that molecules on the moon that are connected to molecules in my room here that are connected will react. If you change one of them, the one by the moon will react. Everything is connected. It's been proven. It can be proven through science. It's what spiritual people have been saying for a long time. So my feeling is that consciousness has to be evolving either through the suffering or through the awakening. And I think there's a big awakening going on of people wanting to find their own peace, their own way of thinking, their own way of living. And like you, Leanne, becoming self-guided and self-taught healers. And there's a lot of people all of a sudden, everywhere you go, there's a course that says you could be a millionaire in the next week if you follow this routine. So it's all about taking responsibility and making your life better. There's a lot of that going on at the moment. Yeah. And I just feel that, so if we've changed a lot in technology in the last 100 years, I feel that humanity is going to change a lot spiritually in the next 30, 40, 50 years. That's my feeling. And I think that that's going to be the biggest change in the next sort of 50 years. That's my feeling.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I hope so.
Yeah.
I won't be around here to tell you, Be up in the spirit world on the spiritual talk show.
50 years time, mate. 50. You might be still alive. Technology. They might have you in a, like.
Oh, actually, yeah. I suppose I could be thinking about it.
Be in theory. Yeah, absolutely.
Wheel me out, saying, "You know what you said during the pandemic."
Yeah.
Now you'll be coming for another medium, going, "I told you so."
Yeah, that's more likely.
Marcus Day, mate, honestly, it's been an absolute privilege interviewing you today. We just jumped out really quickly. Sorry, Marcus, if you're watching, but it has been a real privilege. That's technology for you. I just pressed the wrong button.
I was like, "Oh!"
Oh, you was on your own there, Leanne, for a moment.
Fear in my face.
Yes, it was very funny. So again, sorry, Marcus, we cut you off prematurely. We just want to say thank you to Marcus again. It was a brilliant interview on a Saturday afternoon, and his children were so well behaved, so we thank them for that too. So next week, guys, we've got a guest coming on who is a paranormal investigator, and we are going to be talking about all things. Very interesting gentleman indeed. And his name is Craig Bryant. If you get a chance to look him up, he has a website. It's the Shadow Man of Accrington. He does a podcast as well, amongst other things. He's done quite a few interviews out there. He's a very interesting guy. Wow. So looking forward to that.
Get your questions ready.
Being backstage, I have been a bit busy. So I've been watching who's been sharing. And I've picked out a name already, so I'm not sure you can see it from your side, Leanne, can you?
No.
Yeah, so I've picked out Jill Gibbons-Taylor. Thank you, Jill, for sharing. Please get in touch. You can either have a healing session with Leanne or a half-hour reading with myself. Okay. So thanks, everybody. It's bye for now again already. So thanks for joining, everybody, and we'll see you.
Have a great week.
Yeah, see you this time next week. Bye, everybody. Take care. Bye.